I get asked this question a lot. Should I get the Osmo Pocket or a DSLR or mirrorless camera? Now this question is a lot more difficult to answer, but I'll give you some answers that will hopefully suit your particular situation. But I mean, why not both, right?
¿Por qué no los dos?
Well, optimally having both would be great, but budget generally is the thing that stops us from doing that. So let's break down what you may need to think about if you are choosing between the two. Also stick around, because if you do still have the Osmo Pocket and potentially are thinking about getting a mirrorless camera also or instead, this will actually apply to you too. What's going on, guys? My name's Jason Morris. I am back from my family trip in Japan. It was an incredible place. If you haven't already been, I definitely recommend going. Great sights, incredible people. It's just a great vibe being there. But it is great to be back creating some content again. And before you ask, yes, I did take the Osmo Pocket, and I am glad I did. I got a lot of good content over there with the Osmo Pocket. Not as much as I thought. It was very difficult traveling with a 12-month-old, 10-month-old. Oh, don't tell the missus. It was very difficult. It was a fun time. It was a fun family trip. But the Osmo Pocket was really good because it's small, it's compact, it fit in my pocket, and it's just really easy to use and obviously easy to carry. Because I was lugging around crazy heavy backpack full of camera gear, a full suitcase, catching trains and walking everywhere, because you know, public transport is the main transportation over there. And obviously the wife had the bub on the front, the backpack on the back, her suitcase. If I went anywhere next time with Bub, we're gonna hire a car. Hands down, hire a car would have made the trip so much easier. But anyway, this whole situation is where a smaller setup obviously would be perfect. If I didn't have my A7 III or my A6400, a whole bunch of lenses and you know all that kind of gear, it would have been so much easier. Just have the Osmo Pocket in my pocket, boom, away I go. So there are a whole bunch of pros and cons of having the Osmo Pocket as opposed to mirrorless cameras. But do you need one or the other? I mean, there isn't an obvious answer, but it is very individual. But let's try and break this down into a few different categories. So YouTubers or professionals, like people who charge clients, family content creators, travel vloggers, and photographers. YouTubers. Let's start with YouTubers. Now this is where things get a bit tight, and it purely depends on what kind of content you create. I mean, YouTubers' needs varies on both ends of the scale. It all depends on your production quality. If you follow MKBHD, for instance, like he uses a Red camera to film his YouTube videos. I mean, this costs anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 for a complete functional setup. And obviously the Osmo Pocket costs like what, $300-400? That's a big price difference. And obvious reasons, the Osmo Pocket cannot produce the quality that a Red camera can produce. But for normal people using general sort of camera gear and just a decent high production, it will come down to more so the lenses rather than the camera body itself. I mean, we'll get into that in a sec, but lenses can obviously offer that fast aperture, which gives you better low light performance and shallower depth of field, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole bunch of benefits with mirrorless cameras, and it all depends on what kind of particular shots you need. Yes, camera bodies do vary from body to body, and they are all individual. There are a whole bunch of pros and cons, which brand, which camera bodies, full frame, APS-C. We won't get into that discussion today. We're just talking about generally mirrorless cameras versus the Osmo Pocket. But talking about lenses, this is where the Osmo Pocket has a major con, because you can't attach a lens with the Osmo Pocket to get, say, a larger aperture or a different focal length. But I mean, yes, you can get the Freewell wide angle lens, which I do have. Gives you a slightly wider field of view, which is really good. But that's pretty much it. And you'll just need to establish, can you actually get away with just using the Osmo Pocket for your videos? Things like minimum focusing distance, that can make a big difference. Like, if you get a mirrorless camera and you have a minimum focusing distance of a few centimeters, that could be vital, because if you do a whole bunch of product videography, that could be a big difference, because the Osmo Pocket minimum distance isn't like what mirrorless cameras can achieve. Even low light performance, the Osmo Pocket isn't as strong as most mirrorless cameras. So low light performance could be an issue if you do a lot of indoor shooting or nighttime shooting. So you need to consider these things before you invest in either system. Honestly, I'd probably give it a tie if YouTube is just a hobby and you love making content. But if you treat YouTube just a little bit more seriously and you want to try and increase the production quality and you are sort of starting to make money, maybe a mirrorless camera would be the go, because honestly, it is really hard to beat the mirrorless camera in this instances, because you do have many more pro features and functions. But if you do have the budget, there is absolutely nothing stopping you from getting both options. Now, professionals. This is completely subjective, as having professional quality can vary depending on what jobs you actually do. The Osmo Pocket definitely can create professional looking footage, although it has a bunch of weaknesses compared to mirrorless cameras. Once again, the ability to change lenses and get that shallower depth of field can really help separate the subject from the background, and it can give a more pleasing image. Also, being able to attach mirrorless camera to certain rigs and larger monitors, battery packs, focus pullers can be better in professional settings. I personally would use the Osmo Pocket in a professional video outdoors with like wider establishing shots where depth of field doesn't necessarily matter, or just little in-between cuts. But using the Sony a6000, the a6400, my a7 III, it's just really hard to beat for the Osmo Pocket in many of those professional situations. Like I said, depth of field definitely is a stylistic choice I prefer with those faster lenses. So hands down, in a professional setting, yes, I would give it to mirrorless cameras. There is just no beating the mirrorless cameras and the capabilities of what they can achieve with the right gear and the right operator. Family content creators. Now this is where things get a little bit interesting. This is potentially where the Osmo Pocket would shine over mirrorless cameras. And it all comes down to ease of use and pocketable form factor. That is a big winner for a lot of people. You have the ability to whip the Osmo Pocket out in super fast, any situation, well, almost any situation, but it attracts less attention from others, which can help you focus more, say, on your family trip or, the subject, rather than having a whole bunch of people looking at you and you feeling really awkward. So, that is a pro there for the Osmo Pocket. And also having that mechanical gimbal is really good, because you're able to get nice steady footage, you can keep the horizon nice and flat, and it fits in the palm of your hand, which is really great. Once again, Osmo Pocket is really good because it starts up really quick, and all you need to do is press record and away you go. It's pretty easy to use. You can just do it in full auto and you get some nice footage. That's great. 4K footage at 60 frames. But it mainly comes down to that size and form factor. That is definitely the biggest thing with the Osmo Pocket. So here, I would probably give it a tie, but slightly closer to the Osmo Pocket, more so than mirrorless cameras. But I mean, yes, like I said, they do the same. They are usually bigger in size, but it just all depends on what kind of quality you want. Now, travel vloggers. This can definitely depend on what your needs are. The main thing travel vloggers need essentially is steady footage, light equipment, and good audio. The rest is pretty much luxury items that can help with producing better quality content. For the Osmo Pocket, it's light, it's pocketable, it's perfect for travel vloggers, mainly because you can just whip it out in almost any situation, and just having to not store it in your backpack is awesome. When I went to Japan, I just had it in my pocket, and it was perfect. I was able to whip it out really quickly. I didn't have to go through my backpack or have a heavy camera strapped around my neck. It was just so much easier. And also having that front-facing screen is really good if you do want to do those selfie modes or talking to the camera shots, or even if you just want to compose your shots a little bit better. Definitely does help. You can also now attach the proprietary audio adapter so you can get better audio through different microphones. But I guess that would just add to the bulk. But you can still use the inbuilt audio. It's just sometimes not enough for some travel vloggers. It all depends on what kind of situation you're in. But otherwise, you know, using a lav mic and an external recorder can actually help as well. But once again, that just adds to the bulk of the kit. So sometimes the Osmo Pocket can be good enough as is by itself. But although this is where mirrorless cameras can also win, is the focal length. Now, having a longer zoom lens can help you get footage further away. So for instance, we went to a zoo over in Japan. You're able to zoom closer to the animals or just get a better angle than what you would with the Osmo Pocket, because there are some barriers that you can't get closer to the subject. That's where a zoomable lens would obviously be more beneficial. Now, having a faster aperture lens is better for obviously low light performance, so indoor videos or at night. So if you are traveling, you're not always traveling in perfectly sunny situations. There is obviously nighttime, you've got indoor footage. So there's a whole bunch of things that the Osmo Pocket may be a little bit weak at. This is where mirrorless cameras would generally have better low light capabilities with those faster lenses. And obviously that'll give you less grain in your footage. So once again, purely depends on what you feel is adequate in your quality of videos. Now, I would say it's a tie here between the Osmo Pocket and the mirrorless cameras, but once again, it comes down to the quality and how you want to capture your travel videos. Now, hobbyist photographers. Photography is another art form. I wouldn't classify the Osmo Pocket as a photographer's camera at all. I mean, yes, it does have photography features where you can take photos, but I would say it's more of a video camera due to its mechanical gimbal and great video features. You're obviously still, like I said, able to take photos, but it's just not as good as a mirrorless camera generally would be. The Osmo Pocket only has a 12 megapixel sensor, but you know, this is fine for social media because most social media platforms like Instagram or Facebook generally compress the hell out of your photos and ruin the megapixel count anyway. But your A6000, your A6400, whatever camera, they generally have around 24 megapixels. And that gives you much more quality images, especially if you do want to blow them up and print them out, whatever. You generally have better footage to capture. And having those different lenses, once again, can give you different styles of images. You can get nice wide images for those landscape shots or architecture, or you can get telephoto lenses for those really close-up long shots. So honestly, I would say mirrorless cameras win here. Now, in conclusion, the Osmo Pocket is a great little camera. Yes, it does have its pros and cons, but mirrorless cameras are just really, really hard to beat when you pair them with great glass. You just got to remember that lenses are absolutely critical when it comes to creating great content, because having that flexibility of focal lengths and larger apertures is pretty important in most scenarios. But in saying this, there is absolutely nothing stopping you from having both, well, obviously except your budget. But the Osmo Pocket is still a great pocketable camera. You may realize if you do have it, you might actually not need to upgrade. But you know, if you do have it and you are starting to see its limitations, this is probably where you need to save up and invest in a mirrorless camera, especially if you do want to try and start charging for a lot more paid jobs and just different scenarios where the Osmo Pocket is weak in. But yeah, anyway guys, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit that like button if you did. Comment below if you have the Osmo Pocket and what kind of scenarios do you use? Do you use it in professional settings? I'd really like to know. Do you use professional video footage with the Osmo Pocket? Do you get paid for your stuff? Are you a photographer? I don't know, there could be photographers out there with the Osmo Pocket. Are you a travel photographer, or you just do basic family videos? Are you a YouTuber and use the Osmo Pocket just for YouTube? Let me know, comment below. But anyway, my name's Jason Morris. Keep creating that content. Let's get it.